From the screen of my phone, the Instagram post mocked me with its flawless composition. Against the backdrop of a medieval French chateau, my entire family, my mother, father, brother, sister-in-law, and even my niece and nephew, were lifting wine cups. My retinas were scorched by the caption, "The perfect family vacation without her." Posted 3 hours ago. I was standing by myself in my wedding gown 3 hours ago, observing the empty rows where my family ought to have been. With shaking fingers, I navigated to the comments. "Dad, she's too busy anyway." Then an emoji of laughter. "Mother, it's wonderful to escape from being stressed by her wedding." As I looked through more pictures, my throat constricted. Family shots, river cruises, and vineyard tours, all painstakingly timestamped and geotagged at a chateau I had never even heard of. On what should have been the happiest day of our lives, James sat next to me on our new couch in our new house and muttered, "I can't believe they would do this," in an angry tone. I refrained from crying. Attorneys don't cry. Not Eliza Harper, in particular, who had made a living by never displaying weakness. Instead, something crystallized inside of me when I took a sip of champagne. Something icy, acerbic, and definitive. "What do you think we should do now?" James, my new husband of precisely 8 hours, was the person I asked. I had never seen such a calculating expression in his eyes. "Let's get ready to legally defend ourselves first. We'll then reveal the truth to them when the time comes." I didn't understand his meaning or how our lives were already so intricately entwined with my family's in ways I couldn't have predicted. However, as I gazed at the proof of their treachery, I was confident that this was more than simply a wedding that had been lost. This was about being invisible for years and only being worth my money. And the end was in sight. Family dinner in the past. "Oh, Eliza, you're unusually early today," my mother, Diana, said with a stiff smile when I walked into our family home 2 months ago. "Is work finished?" The conversation in the living room had halted abruptly upon my entrance. My brother Benjamin exchanged meaningful glances with his wife, Camila, while my father, Victor, didn't even look up from his newspaper. I let out a small sigh. "Yes, I finished early today. I wanted to have dinner at home." My father snorted. All a miracle our lawyer deigned to look up from her law books. I felt that familiar tightness in my chest, a sensation I'd known since childhood. Being the eldest daughter in the Harper family meant being the responsible one, the serious one, the one who was expected to succeed and support everyone else, while somehow also being criticized for exactly those qualities. "Dad," I began, but Benjamin interrupted. "Eliza, tell me about your meeting this morning. Did you sue another company?" He turned to his wife with an exaggerated eye roll. "Eliza only talks about numbers. She has a special talent for ruining the mood at parties." Camila laughed softly. "That's right. At the last holiday party, she went on and on about contract clauses. Half of the guests left. I was just..." The words died in my throat. What was the point? I'd been having this same conversation with my family for 15 years. Ever since I chose law school over the family business, my father had never forgiven me for not following his path. Even though the monthly checks I sent had been keeping them afloat for years. They should have known that I was helping with their living expenses. But in their eyes, I was just the boring, serious eldest daughter who'd forgotten how to smile. That night, as I was leaving, my father called out to me. "By the way, about the cost of Benjamin's birthday party next month, you'll help out a bit, won't you?" I nodded quietly. My relationship with my family was always like this. My value of existence was proportional to the thickness of my wallet. Flashback. The engagement. "They're going to love you," I assured James as we drove to my parents' house 6 months ago to announce our engagement. "My mom might be a bit formal at first, but she'll warm up." James squeezed my hand. "It doesn't matter if they love me. I love you." I remember looking at his profile then, wondering how I'd gotten so lucky. James Ryan was everything I'd never thought I'd find: intelligent, kind, successful, and most importantly, he saw me. Really saw me. Not as a walking ATM or a boring lawyer, but as Eliza. We'd met at a corporate law conference where he was speaking about ethical leadership. I'd been impressed by his clarity of thought, his unwavering principles. Coming from a family where money disappeared into mysterious investments and opportunities that never materialized, James's financial responsibility and transparency felt like solid ground beneath my feet. "Just so you know," I said hesitantly, "they might ask about money. My family has expectations." James's expression didn't change. "I understand family dynamics better than most people think," he said cryptically. At the time, I didn't ask what he meant. The dinner was a disaster. My father spent the entire evening talking about his company's expansion plans, barely acknowledging James, except to ask leading questions about his connections. My mother kept steering the conversation toward the wedding budget. Benjamin and Camila arrived late, left early, and spent the intervening time showing vacation photos on their phones. James was perfectly polite, but I felt his quiet assessment of everything. On the drive home, he said only one thing: "They don't deserve you, Eliza." I should have listened more carefully to the steel in his voice. Flashback: wedding preparations. "I'm planning to have a family dinner to introduce my fiancé properly. You absolutely have to come, Dad," I insisted over the phone a month before the wedding. "Of course, Eliza," my father answered smoothly. "I'll definitely come if work finishes early." The strange thing was, my father Victor had begun acting different whenever conversations about my upcoming wedding came up. He wasn't acting strange in a bad way, but he was certainly secretive in a suspicious way. Whispering on the phone. Closing his laptop when I walked into his office. My sister-in-law Camila started giving me these little smiles and saying things like, "Eliza, you're going to love what we're planning for your big day." Even my brother Benjamin, who was usually too absorbed in his investment banking work to care about family stuff, was dropping hints. I'm not going to lie, it got me excited. "Your wedding is supposed to be a milestone, right?" My family wasn't wealthy and I was independent, so I wasn't expecting anything extravagant. But all the secrecy had me thinking, maybe they were planning an amazing bridal shower or rehearsal dinner. On the promised day for our family dinner, he sent me a message. "I'm sorry, but I forgot I had a golf appointment with my friend Bob. Let's meet on the wedding day." I sighed. This wasn't the first time. My father always prioritized his work and hobbies over important events in my life. The dinner with James got canceled, but I still held on to hope for the wedding day. The wedding day. I stood there in my dress, holding my bouquet, staring at the empty rows where my family should have been. Mom, Dad, Benjamin, Camila, Adrian, Sophia. None of them had come. Something might have happened, I thought, and called my father on my cell phone. It got rejected. The same thing happened when I called my mother. I sent texts to Benjamin and Camila, but there was no reply. James squeezed my hand. His calm eyes reassured me. "Eliza, don't worry. Something must have happened. They wouldn't intentionally not come." James' suit was tailor-made, and his gentle smile was just for me. His parents looked concerned, but James was decisive, and we proceeded with the ceremony as planned. Feeling the absence of my family, I said, "I do." In front of the empty rows, James' hand firmly held mine, and the look in his eyes told me that I was enough, even without my family. Later, as we returned to our new home, I remembered I actually have an Instagram account. I don't post much. I just follow my family members' accounts to check on their lives sometimes. And there it was posted 3 hours earlier. The aftermath at home. "Let's prepare to protect yourself legally," James had said after we discovered the Instagram posts. I didn't fully understand what he meant until the next morning. I was still in bed, just waking up from the previous day's fatigue, when I heard James' voice from the living room. His tone was different from usual, businesslike and calm, yet it had an unwavering strength. "Yes, Victor," James said. "The decision remains unchanged. From Monday, you will be transferred to the regional branch. Your future will be considered based on your performance there." I was fully awake the moment I heard him say my father's name. I jumped out of bed and headed to the living room to see James holding the phone with a serious expression. He saw me, gave a small nod, and continued the call. "No, this is not personal. It's purely a matter of performance and compliance," he said calmly. "Your department has failed to meet targets for 3 consecutive quarters. Furthermore, there have been violations of the company's ethics code." The voice from the phone grew louder. It sounded like my father was shouting. James remained calm and switched the phone to speaker mode. "You don't have the authority." My father's voice echoed throughout the room. "I've supported this company for 20 years. You're just a—" James calmly interrupted. "I was officially appointed as the CEO 3 months ago. All personnel decisions are within my authority." After a moment of silence, my father's voice changed. This time, it was mixed with fear. "Wait, James, there must be some misunderstanding. I was just—" "You skipped a family wedding to go on a European vacation," James said sternly. "Our company upholds the value of cherishing family. You failed to uphold even that basic principle." "Wedding?" My father's voice sounded confused. "What wedding?" James looked at me, his expression softening slightly. "Eliza's wedding. Your daughter's." On the other end of the phone, something fell. Then my mother's voice was heard from a distance. "Victor, what happened?" "Eliza's wedding. Why would— I am James Ryan, your superior, and your son-in-law." Complete silence followed. Then frantic voices were heard from the phone. My father was hurriedly explaining something to my mother. Benjamin's voice could also be heard in the background. They were clearly agitated. But my father returned to the phone, his voice trembling. "Why didn't anyone tell me that Eliza and you—" "I didn't know. We sent the invitations 3 months ago." I spoke for the first time. There was no response. "I also called Mom to confirm, but was told you were busy." "Eliza, my father guessed. You were there." "Listen, this is all a misunderstanding. We were just on vacation. I didn't know your fiancé was James, or that he was my boss." Benjamin's voice cut in. "James, Eliza, listen. We learned in Europe that Dad was being demoted. Everyone was upset, and we tried to contact you, but you canceled my wedding," I said in an icy voice. "You didn't think about the most important event in my life at all." "Eliza," my mother started speaking. "Enough," James said before hanging up. "Victor, I expect a report from the regional branch on Monday." When the call ended, I buried my face in my knees. James sat beside me and put his arm around my shoulders. "Honestly, I didn't think your father wouldn't recognize me," James said softly. "He had met me in board meetings and should have known I was a member of the management team. I guess he really didn't consider you in his life at all." His words pierced my heart. My father couldn't even remember my face. The confrontation. 3 hours later, our smartphones kept ringing. 290 desperate messages from my father, mother, Benjamin, and Camila. They suddenly realized my importance because my husband had the power to affect their livelihood. "What are you going to do?" James asked, gently stroking my shoulder. "I'll ignore them," I said with determination. "Just as they ignored my wedding, I'll ignore their messages." That evening, we built my legal protection strategy. I called my bank and removed my family members' access to my accounts. Around midnight, I discovered an email thread between Dad and Benjamin from 2 weeks earlier. "Dad, should we even tell Eliza about the France trip?" Benjamin, "Why bother? She'll just worry about her wedding." Dad, "True, LOL. It's not like she ever focuses on anything but legal matters anyway." Benjamin, "She probably won't notice we're gone until after her wedding." Dad, "I think you're right, LOL." That was the moment something inside me crystallized. I'd been holding on to a tiny hope that maybe everything was just a big misunderstanding, but that email destroyed it. On the day they were supposed to return, I was waiting in my apartment. James said he had work and promised to join me in the evening. At 4:32 p.m., I heard multiple voices in the elevator of my building. The wheels of suitcases rolled on marble and the intercom rang. When I opened the door, there was an unnatural scene of jet lag, exhausted faces forcing cheerful smiles. My father was clutching a gift bag that had obviously not been in his original luggage. "Eliza," my father said in a forcefully bright voice, "why didn't you answer the phone? I wanted to ask you about my job." I stared at them with a cold expression. My mother looked apologetic and Camila was staring at the floor. Only Benjamin hadn't completely abandoned his somewhat arrogant attitude. As a tense conversation began at the doorway, the elevator doors opened again and James appeared, wearing a suit. His expression was stern when he saw my father. "Victor," he said calmly. My father's face drained of color. "James," he choked. "Is it true what was written in that email? Are you together?" James stood next to me and put his arm around my shoulder. "Victor, I am Eliza's husband. The wedding was 4 days ago. You were invited, but it seems you prioritized your vacation in France." My father's face twisted with fear and confusion. "Eliza, is he really my company's CEO?" "Yes, he is," I said calmly. "But you know what? You chose traveling over my wedding, and now you've come to complain about James demoting you." Benjamin stepped forward. "Eliza, listen. We didn't know your fiancé was actually Dad's boss. Otherwise." "That has to be a blatant lie," I said firmly. "James' promotion was decided last month. His name was circulating in company emails. The reason you know nothing about my fiancé is because you have no interest in my life." My father said in a trembling voice, "Eliza, we're family. Family helps each other, right?" James calmly said, "Victor, someone who doesn't value family has no right to talk about family." As those words echoed in the hallway, complete silence fell. My father's shoulders slumped, and despair spread across his face. My mother covered her mouth with her hand, letting out an uncontrollable sob. Even Benjamin lost his usual arrogance and dropped his gaze to the floor. "I notified you when you were in France last week," James continued calmly. "Employees who don't value family are not needed in the company. You are to be demoted to a rural subsidiary." It was only after you received that notice that you suddenly started to care about your daughter's wedding. Camila said in a small voice, "We didn't know." Victor suddenly said they had to go back. James looked at her, his expression softening slightly. "Please leave now. Eliza has been hurt enough." My father took a step back and dropped the gift bag. Its contents scattered on the floor, but no one tried to pick them up. My crying mother grabbed my father's arm and pulled him toward the elevator. "Eliza," Benjamin said finally, "can I talk?" "Get out," I said quietly, but firmly. They slumped their shoulders and hung their heads as they entered the elevator. The last scene visible through the closing doors was my father's devastated expression and my mother's tear-soaked face. Benjamin was supporting Camila, who was crying like a child. When the door closed, James gently embraced me. "Are you okay?" he asked kindly. "I'm fine," I answered. "I'm no longer an invisible presence. That's all I need." Looking out the window, I could see them walking through the lobby with heavy steps toward a taxi. My father no longer looked arrogant. He just looked like an old man. Watching them get into the taxi and drive away in the rain, I felt true freedom for the first time. Epilogue is 6 months later, 1 month after the wedding. Their situation had visibly deteriorated. James and I were having coffee at the breakfast table, discussing my father's situation. On James' laptop was my father's performance report, and the numbers were harsh. "He only lasted 2 weeks at the regional branch," James said quietly. "He was late every day and even fell asleep in meetings. Yesterday, he formally submitted his resignation." I picked up my coffee cup and stared at the steam. As expected, James took my hand. "Do you regret it?" "No." I shook my head. They made their choices. I just made mine. As we were preparing to go to work after breakfast, my new phone rang. It was my mother's number. After exchanging glances with James, I answered on speaker mode. "Eliza, please listen." My mother's voice sounded tired and thin. "Your father quit his job. We're financially struggling. We can't make our mortgage payments, and our credit card debt is growing. Could you help us a little?" James silently looked at me, nodding slightly to indicate that he was leaving this decision to me. "How much do you need?" I asked calmly. "About $3,000 this month," my mother said in a small voice. "It's temporary. Your father will find a new job soon." I struggled to contain my laughter. $3,000, almost exactly the same amount as their luxury hotel bill in France. "Tell me honestly, why do you need the money?" I said. "I told you mortgage and the real reason." I interrupted her. What is father trying to do after James demoted him? After a long silence, my mother said, "He has contacted a competitor. He's planning to sell confidential information from James' company. We need money for a lawyer." I could see James' expression hardening. He quickly began taking notes and gestured that he would contact the legal department. "I see," was all I said. "Mom, you just admitted to conspiracy in corporate espionage and industrial spying. This call is being recorded." "Eliza," my mother gasped. "How could you record a family conversation?" "How ironic," I said coldly. "A family who chose traveling over my wedding is now bringing up family." That evening, James and I were drinking wine on the penthouse balcony, gazing at the city lights. He put his arm around my shoulder and pulled me close. "What do you think?" I asked. "Do you think they'll give up?" "They have nothing left to lose," James said quietly. "That's the most dangerous kind of person." 2 days later, I received a direct call from my father. "Eliza," his voice was strangely calm. "I need some financial assistance. It's temporary. I'll pay it back soon." James and I were listening on speakerphone again. He had already contacted a lawyer and started preparing a restraining order. "How much do you need?" I asked. $5,000, he said without hesitation. "As family, as a daughter helping out, that much is only natural, right?" I looked at James. He just shook his head. "Dad, do you understand how dangerous the gamble you're taking is?" I asked quietly. James took everything from me. He suddenly shouted, my position, my dignity, even my daughter. He should be punished. "Your problem has always been that you're self-centered," I said. "I am not a thing, not a possession to be taken. I made my own choices. Did you know he was the CEO?" My father said in a trembling voice. "Did you marry him knowing he was my boss?" "I married him knowing who he is," I answered, "because he is kind, honest, and respects me. Things you never showed me." The phone went silent and was then disconnected. The next morning, the news was shocking. My father had been arrested for compliance violations and attempted sale of corporate secrets. According to a report from company security, my mother and Camila were crying at home. What should I have done? I asked James. I could have stopped them. James touched my cheek and said gently, "Eliza, these were their choices, not your responsibility." That afternoon, I formally applied for a restraining order through my lawyer against my parents, Benjamin and Camila. I couldn't let those who were destroying their own lives destroy mine as well. "You forgot my existence," I wrote in my final email. "Now it's my turn to forget yours." From that day, I created a new phone number, a new email address, and a new beginning. James supported me throughout the process, and at night he held me in his arms and whispered, "You're not alone. I am your family." 6 months later, we bought a new house, a beautiful house by the lake, away from the city's hustle and bustle. James successfully reorganized the company, and I was promoted to chief legal officer. The only traces of my former family were the occasional documents from the court. The demands for gifts from Adrian and Sophia were gone, and I was free. The family bonds were broken, but James and I were building a new family, a family where I was visible. Every night after dinner, James and I would drink wine and talk about future plans. Once a month, we would have dinner with James' parents and dream about our own family. Sometimes his casual words gave me a sense of security I had never experienced before. "You are my everything, Eliza." And for the first time in my life, I knew exactly what it meant to be someone's everything.